welcome to the Long Road Podcast. The journey goes ever on with a long road. This episode, Knights of the Road. So this week we look ahead to the upcoming release of the Long Road's new EP, Moonshine Elegy, featuring 4 brand new songs and music videos. Steve takes us back to think about an old favourite song of his, which still pops up from time to time. Kev tells us tales of the Caribbean in Kev's Kafe, Korner, and the Bishop, that's me. Well, this week I show off my bloomer. The Long Road Podcast is exploring the world of the vagabond, the troubadour, the adventurer. The world isn't beige, it isn't processed, it's authentic, it's rich, and it's real. If those are the sorts of sentiments that make your brain light up, then hop on board. We are embracing all of those things, we're celebrating all of that, and we'd love it if you joined us on the journey. Greetings, I'm Chris the Bish Leiden. Welcome to episode 19 of the Long Road Podcast. So the strangeness continues all round, the good and the bad. I'll try to focus on the good. A story that will have, I'm sure, not passed you by this week is Captain Tom Moore's Herculean fundraising effort. The 99-year-old war veteran wants to raise £1,000 for the NHS by walking 100 lengths of his garden before he turns 100 in a few days' time. I mean, I don't think the English language has developed the superlative to describe the extent to which Tom has smashed his original goal. £1,000 was achieved, I think, in 24 hours. So they increased the target, which was duly reached. So they increased again and again and again. And something about this story has captured people. I mean, as I write this, Tom's Just Giving page is up to £18.9 million. That is an incredible, incredible figure. Both the amount raised and the person. I'm sure by the time I publish this podcast, the amount will have topped 20 million. By next week, it'll be at 25 million. I mean, it's just incredible. Of course, this does bring up the fact that one man on a fundraising website can raise this much money, but surely the NHS, the crown jewel in the UK's achievements in the 20th century, I mean, it should have the funding it needs directly from the government. I mean, there are some people in this country, or very few people in this country, who could donate £20 million or £200 million to the NHS, and they would barely notice it on their bank statements. The difference would be nothing. This is one of those situations which is both amazing, 20 million quid's been raised, but also a bit crazy at the same time. On to other things. Huge thanks to everyone who has watched and shared our new music video that was unveiled last week. The brand new song, This Is My England, has been going great guns on YouTube and seems to be really resonating with people at this weird time. So please do continue to share and enjoy. If you haven't yet, please do watch Steve's introduction video to This Is My England as well. Both the videos can be found on YouTube. Just search This Is My England, Steve Bonham, and you'll find them. Now, some of you might start to spot some new sort of branding appearing on our social media profiles. This is following on from our thoughts as a group about the long road and our approach to creativity, our approach to life, I guess. I mean, as I say in the opening of this podcast, we're reaching out to the vagabond, the troubadour, the adventurer. We're trying to work out the best way to encapsulate all those things that we do. Not just the long road, the band making music, but this podcast, Steve's books, the videos we're making alongside the music, Kev's writing, the theatre show we're cooking up right now. So you'll start to see the Vagabond Way appearing as a sort of overarching umbrella for all the activity that we do. Steve Bonham and the Long Road will probably be a good chunk of that stuff that you see, releasing music and videos, but obviously this podcast is coming out weekly right now and will probably continue to do so whilst we're in lockdown. Performances online coming up too. Perhaps some solo Steve, some the three of us, me, Steve and Kev, perhaps some just Steve and the Bishop. The Vagabond Way seems to sum up what we're all trying to do, how we live our lives through choice and a bit of necessity right now. That term vagabond is an interesting one, though. It's taken me a little while to sort of wrap my head around it. I guess there's an etymological link, if that's the word one, not the insect one, etymological link between vagabond and vagrant, I guess. The second of those two terms universally seems to have some sort of negative connotations. It's pretty clear to Steve, Kev and me what we mean by vagabond. Indeed, Steve's self-styled nickname has become the Vagabond Philosopher, to go alongside the Bish, and Kev's the Big Man. I mean, if you look up vagabond online to get a definition, you see a link to late Latin vagabundus, which I just love the sound of. I'm a vagabundus, thanks very much, who are you? From the Latin verb vagare, to wander. So essentially, vagabond is a wanderer. You get some more detailed definitions. A person on a trip of indeterminate destination and or length of time. One who wanders from place to place, having no fixed dwelling or not abiding in it, and usually without the means of honest livelihood, a vagrant, a hobo. Now perhaps this is where things need nuancing. Steve, Kev and I, we have our homes, but perhaps we're also used to being on the road lots of the time as well. So that being on the road is a sort of home as well. Certainly I have a home back in Derbyshire, but I also have my home in Manchester. The livelihood bit is perhaps more interesting, an honest livelihood. Well, plenty would say trying to make it as an artist of any sort is tricky. Is it an honest livelihood? Earning an honest livelihood is an uphill struggle, certainly. Perhaps all three of us could have had successful, if uneventful, straightforward careers, 9-to-5 jobs, rather than the more elusive portfolio-style careers going from project to project, fingers in many pies. But there's just something in our personalities, our psychological makeups, which means it just wasn't on the cards, I don't think. If you look at some of the related terms to vagabond online, extravagant is one. Perhaps that applies. We each have our moments, for sure. Vague is another. Again, perhaps this sometimes applies. Art is hard to pin down sometimes. Vagueness is required. A placeholder until the thing that it's going to become, becomes. We know a song will exist come the end of the songwriting process, but quite what that song will be until then, we're not sure. I did come across this great term, Knights of the Road, which I'd never come across before, but perhaps it'll start to take on, I don't know. It has a sort of boldness to it, which quite appeals. But there's also a vulnerability. Every artist that has ever existed has vulnerabilities. Their art is either an appraisal of those vulnerabilities or a hard-fought battle to rage against those vulnerabilities, or a beautiful mishmash of the two. The image of an emboldened knight striding forth, chest out, proud, but always on the road, never wanting to stay somewhere too long for some reason, never able to stay somewhere too long for some reason. The journey goes on, the fight goes on. So, in the coming weeks and months, when you hear or read about the term vagabond or the vagabond way, think in terms of those knights of the road. Join them on the journey to be emboldened and live your best life. Be the knight on your own road. Do it the vagabond way. And one last thing before we move on. Our song from the end of last year, Wrapped Up in You, it's been going great guns on Spotify and YouTube and all those places. It's up for a UK Country Music Award 2020, presented by ukcountryradio.com. And we need you to vote. We need you to vote for Wrapped Up in You. So please go to ukcountrymusicawards.com/song to vote for Wrapped Up in You. In the list you get to, it's under Steve Bottom, so it comes under the S in the alphabetisation. Just in case you can't remember how it goes, here it is.
I laid down my gun, the long day was done, I was looking to lighten the load. Stopped rolling dice, I've learned to think twice, I said goodbye to the road. Wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you. When you came into view, it was all I could do to stand up and open the gate. Something I would find would do things to my mind, gave up all resistance to my fate. Wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you. With the sun on your skin, you smile, let me in, I put my hat on the back of your door. Your eyes catch a fire like a lighter on the wire. Couldn't help but come back for more. Wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you. You're a poet, you're a lover, you're an angel undercover. You're the best thing that happened to me. There's nothing that is fake, there's no one on the take. You're the fruit from the magical tree. Wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you, wrapped up in you. Surrender to a night of bliss. We're rolling and tumbling into heaven. I am stumbling. I never had a lover like this. Wrapped up in you, 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 wrapped up in you.
So that was Wrapped Up in You from the Long Roads EP American Wilderness, released back at the end of 2019. And we have exciting news. Coming up next week is the release of our next EP, called Moonshine Elegy. So this has got 4 brand new songs with 4 brand new music videos, and we're really looking forward to sharing them with you. Next Friday's episode of this podcast will be a special on Moonshine Elegy. The week after that, so that's Friday the 1st of May, at 7 p.m. BST or 8 p.m. Spanish time, we'll be holding our live launch event on Facebook Live. This will feature me in Manchester, Steve in Derbyshire, and Kev in Spain. We'll have music, chat, stories, basically all the bits you'd get at one of our gigs, but from the comfort of your own home. So get that date in your diaries, 7 p.m. Friday the 1st of May. If you can't join us at that time, the video will be available to watch afterwards on Facebook, so you can watch it whenever you like. Right now, Steve has got some thoughts on the upcoming EP, Moonshine Elegy, he'd like to share, so I'll hand over to Steve.
I'm so excited about this EP coming out of Moonshine Elegy. In fact, I'm blown away by the whole project from American Wilderness that came out before Christmas, and it's a bit like you always dream of something and then you find yourself doing it. You know, I think we've all got that thing in the back of our heads, you know, what I really should be doing, and then to find that circumstances, life, perhaps even a bit of guts and bloody mindedness from yourself results in you actually achieving that and creating something that feels authentic and close to who you are. It's unbelievable magic to be there, and it's taken a long time. I think I did my first recordings. Yeah, it's probably true to say 40 odd years ago. So to find the music, this is the vital music. This is the music with sinew and bone and everything that you've always wanted to make. We've put the hours in, we've put the years in, Kev and I, and that young Christopher, yeah, he's done a shift or two too. So, you know, the fact we're getting there, it is pretty special. And it's no compromise music. It's the music we want to make. It's the music that captures who we are and what we've experienced and what's going on in our heads. These are good times. These are good times to be creative. We live in a strange and odd world. We live in a world that's increasingly not one I can actually recognise, but there, just to find you holding this little nugget of truth in your hand. Thank you for everyone's help on that journey. There's a lot of people, a lot of good people on this story, and I hope that everyone who listens to it not just enjoys the music, but gets a bit for themselves out of it, saying, yeah, and why not me? Whatever it is you want to do it.
On The Long Road Revealed this week, Steve looks back at an old favourite, a song called Mary by the Old Bridge. Now, this was probably one of the songs I learnt very early on when starting to play with Steve and our old pal Tim, way back when. In fact, it's probably exactly 20 years ago now, starting to think about it. I think it was the summer of 2000 was when we first started doing things. This song, Mary, it's been a fan favourite for as long as I've known it. It's a lovely, gentle ballad. As Steve says, it does nothing unexpected on the surface, but does just about everything you need a song to do. You can imagine sitting back in the garden with pals on a balmy summer's evening, kicking back, relaxing as the song washes over you. For those of you who are interested, there is a certain level of musical subversion going on here, which I found to be a feature of many of Steve's songs over the years. And often he has absolutely no idea he's being at all subversive, but occasionally would come across a little, how to put it, rhythmic feature in a song that we'd have to work through. It all comes down to the beat and the length of a bar, if, like me, you are choosing to think of things in those sort of musical terms. Steve has no particular thought for bars, certainly 20 years ago. Perhaps he does have more so now. Everything, certainly back then, was very instinctive, and actually often still is these days. So Mary by the Old Bridge Mary could be littered with half bars that you don't notice as a listener, but if you're playing along and you think you've got the pattern of it, 1, 2, 3, 4, suddenly 1, 2, 1, what? Suddenly an extra half bar appears, or suddenly a half bar disappears, and you've just got to readjust. Steve, all the while, gloriously oblivious. After 2 decades of playing together, I think I've just about got the hang of these half bar tricks, but sometimes a new one comes along and trips me up, but I have a feeling thus it will ever be. Anyway, here's Steve.
I guess like everyone else, I've been trying to do things usefully during this lockdown. I've been working on the new EP that should be released next week. I've been teaching myself the arcane mysteries of the internet and learning all sorts of stuff I probably should have known years ago. I've been working on a book I should have finished. This is a story of my life. Should have finished a year ago, about a trek I did from the top of the Atlas Mountains into the desert, called Stumbling Over Eden. And like all of us in these times, actually sticking at it is more difficult than you can believe sometimes. And guitars to hand means that I'm easily distracted. And one of the kind of fun things I've been doing is getting some of the old songs from the attic, stuff that's I wrote years ago, decades ago even, and maybe not played for a while, don't really fit what we're doing now, and I thought it might be interesting just to start playing some of those again. I'm amazed how I can actually remember some of the lyrics, because I was never that good at writing lyrics for songs down. I've got much more disciplined now, much more disciplined. Anyway, this is a song I wrote, I think, when I was about 22, 23. And it's a song that served me well for a number of years. There's nothing original about it. It's a very typical tale of a poor, hungry folk singer meeting the girl of his dreams one night, and yet has to hit the road the next morning and just never sees her again. But it did all right. It's called Mary by the Old Bridge, and I think I might have recorded it 4 times. The very first one was recorded in, I think, a cellar in Leeds with a cello player on it, and my old mate Tim playing his wonderful mandolin riff. And then it was on the very first album Tim and I ever did in the 80s. And then I think we did a version later, a swing version, which probably usefully was never actually released. And then when I started playing again 7 or 8 years ago, it was on the first album I did, The Moon's High Tide. So it served me well. So here we are, Mary by the Old Bridge. First met her when I was with a traveling band. She came to watch and decided to stay. She asked me what made a wandering man. Didn't know I'd always been that way. Talked a while, she said she must be going home. Said I'd walk with her down the road. She was the moon and the stars, heaven full of promises. Felt I'd love her till the world grew cold. Mary by the old bridge weeping, Mary as the gaslight fades, Mary with the seasons changing, wanders down the old parade. First made love in a grassy meadow, under a sleeping oak where the night bird calls, till the early hours of morn, till the dew lay around us. Has been so truthful that I can recall. Mary by the old bridge weeping, Mary as the gaslight fades, Mary with the seasons changing, wanders down the old parade. Future were more than a string of broken promises. I suppose I'd still be with her today. But I'm back once again on a road leading nowhere. Often think of her when I start to play. Mary by the old bridge weeping, Mary as the gaslight fades, Mary with the seasons changing, wanders down the old parade.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Kev's Cafe Corner once more. You may remember last week I was in America, down in Arkansas at the Parrot Beach Cafe. Well, today I'm going to take you to Barbados, and a place I was lucky enough to visit very regularly when I was doing my show in the Caribbean. And I used to go into Bridgetown. I used to walk into Bridgetown from the terminal where the ship would dock regularly. And it was a nice walk, about a mile, I suppose, down into town. And as you might expect, there's a bridge that goes across the water in Bridgetown. And across the bridge is a beautiful two-storey sort of wooden fronted building that's called the Bean and Bagel. and on the second floor there's like a veranda terrace that goes all the way round. And from it you can watch the world go by, and more often than not you would see the amazing sight of turtles swimming up through the turquoise water, sticking their heads out, see what was going on and swimming away. And it's beautiful to sit and watch this happening while you were having your coffee. And a very nice cup of coffee it was too, but also the speciality there was plantains and bacon. And that was always my thing when we were coming into Barbados. It was get down to the bean and bagel for some coffee and plantains and bacon. It was just a really nice breakfast vibe, sat there watching the turtles. And Bridgetown itself, buzzing with activity, fantastically colourful place. And the bridge that went across the water to get to the Bean and Bagel had a few people lining it with their stalls, selling their wares, some homemade things, a lot of different jewellery, etc. And there was this one guy, a fantastic Rasta guy, incredible dreads, and just sat there chilling, selling these, I think they were sort of metal, sort of wound figures of Rasta people and what have you. And really nice stuff he was selling. And this dude had a great vibe coming off him. And I used to look at all these places quite often. I was drawn to the guy, and I got talking to him. And he's asking where I'm from, you know. And I said, well, I'm from the UK and grew up in Derby. And he said, Derby. He says, yeah, I remember that. And he used to be part of an 8-piece band that used to play at Tiffany's Club in Derby. And I found this remarkable, you know. I'm halfway around the world, fellow musician, and there's this guy selling his wares on the bridge, and we started reminiscing about Tiffany's and Derby and the music scene there. Quite amazing. And it was just really nice, and I'd see the guy occasionally when I went to Barbados on those occasions. And it was, my time in the Caribbean was such that I got to explore a lot of different music, different types of reggae, different songs. And of course you can't spend time in that part of the world without encountering music of Bob Marley. And I thought I'd share with you, just before I sign off this section today, my version of Redemption Song that I recorded for a reggae album that I did some years ago. And it often reminds me of my time spent in that wonderful part of the world. If you're ever in Barbados, by all means, please go and visit the Bean and Bagel. You won't be disappointed. So until next week, I'm going to leave you with Redemption Song.
After they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever had. Redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Have no fear of atomic energy, for none of them are gonna stop the time. How long must they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say that we're just a part of it. Oh, we've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever had. Redemption song, redemption song. These songs of freedom, it's all I ever had. Redemption songs, it's all I ever had. Redemption songs, it's all I ever had. Redemption songs, it's all I ever had. Redemption
Remarkable how small the world can be sometimes when you bump into people from halfway around the world in an unlikely place. The Bean and Bagel sounds like a fab place to chill out. Thanks for sharing, Kev. Maybe one day I'll get to visit. More from Kev next time. Some updates for the Bishop's Daily Bread this week. Not huge progress on many fronts here, I'm afraid. Needing to ration a little bit my use of the bread flour I have, as it's slightly tricky to get hold of at the moment. And perhaps I'm still emotionally reeling from the heady highs of the success of my Zop from last week. I was interested in trying a dead simple loaf, no degrees in quantum mechanics required to achieve the plat for this one. So I googled a recipe for a bloomer. Paul Hollywood's inevitably came up, so I thought I'd give it a go, and actually it worked really well. I know Paul Hollywood is one of those ones that really says, don't bother with warm water, so I didn't. I used cool water, as his recipe dictated. I do get puzzled when he says, though, don't put the salt on the yeast as you'll kill it, and then literally half a second later you're mixing them up anyway. So what? At what point does the salt's ability to kill the yeast suddenly stop? It's mysterious to me. Regardless, I thought I was making a fairly modest size loaf, but turns out it was bloody huge, but actually tasted delicious. Great texture, very pleasing all round. It almost wouldn't fit in my my bread tub, so obviously I had to take a slice off to test it immediately so it could be contained properly, for testing purposes only, you understand. Still no progress on the homemade mozzarella. The rennet has finally arrived today, but now I'm out of milk, so I'll have to start on that journey tomorrow, I think, because I've got a scheduled shop on the cards to stock up. A couple of weeks ago I bought a live in-a-pot basil plant, as I thought some of that homemade mozzarella, some lovely tomatoes off the vine, not my vine, I hasten to add, a shop-bought punnet of tomatoes on the vine, some olive oil, some garlic, delicious. I haven't been able to make the cheese yet, so thus no mozzarella salad, but I am pleased every day, as I have a reminder in my phone now, check basil, as the basil is living on a sunny windowsill right now, so I must make sure he's got enough water. I'll be honest with you, it's the longest one of these live-in-a-pot basils has survived in my house, so I'm quite pleased with that, and I'll be even more pleased when I actually start eating the damn thing. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening, as always. Please remember to subscribe to the Long Road Podcast. We are on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify and Acast, all over the place. The next episode will be out next week, Friday the 24th of April 2020, along with the launch of our new EP, Moonshine Elegy. If you want to get in touch with us, the best way is through Facebook. If you search for The Vagabond Way, Steve Bonham and The Long Road on Facebook, you will find us. Go to artisan-creative.com to sign up to our mailing list. The mailing only comes out every quarter, so it's no bombardment of your inbox. Keep things ticking over nicely. All of our music is on Spotify and Apple Music, so go and have a listen. If you like what you hear, consider purchasing. If you like what we're doing in general, why not consider supporting Artisan Creativity? Drop us a few quid. You can do it through PayPal, super easy. Just visit paypal.me/thevagabondway. Thank you once again, brave adventurers, vagabonds and explorers. Remember, the world isn't beige, it's authentic, it's rich and it's real. Embrace every last bit of it. Until next time, the journey goes ever on with a long road. Bye for now.